Want to better understand yourself, others, and the best path for your life? Welcome to Authentic Living, podcast for a better life. The podcast where we delve into life themes and how learning who you authentically are can change your entire life. Here are your hosts, John Boris and Kim Ely.
Hi, welcome back. We are so glad to have you back here at Authentic Living, the podcast for a better life. And I am your co-host, Kim Ely. And we also have our other co-host, John Boris.
Hello.
Hello. And I am excited because this week we're going to talk about something that happened that was inspired by something in real life that happened this week. So, John, tell us the story.
Well, I was conducting an assessment, and when we were completed, and she had taken it before, but I had improved the assessment itself. So she wanted to do it again, and we did. And she says, one question I have is, I know how I can use it for myself, but how do I use it out in the world? And I'd sure like to know how to do that. And so back when I had assessed her, we didn't get into that very much because people came to me with specific issues like career or relationship or something very specific. Anyway, so to use
John, I want to interrupt you real quick because to you and I, it's obvious what we're talking about, but just to reiterate for folks who might be joining us for the first time, what assessment did you give her?
Oh, okay. What we do is I give her a questionnaire, and it's the Authentic Life Theme questionnaire, and they fill it out, very simple questions. Mm-hmm. Then we meet, and I take them through the answers that they gave. And we kind of, because I can have follow-up questions, it's very different than a personality profile test where the questions are fixed and multiple. This is ongoing and streaming. And so we go through the questionnaire, and then when we're done, we make discoveries about what makes them happy, where is their strength in their knowledge and ability to learn. We learn how they interact with people the best way, the most ideal way. And also, what are they up to in the world of action, getting things done, changed? What is best for them? But we also get into, are they looking for abstract or physical result? That's very important. And we also get into the idea of rejuvenation. Rejuvenation is where you separate yourself from your normal activities. And then you have a consumer type that's very, very unique. So when they're done, then they have a good idea of the archetype motivation. That's what these are, of love, justice, wisdom, and power. They're archetypes, which means that they define an idea, such as we know the difference between pride and anger. No problem. Why? Because these are specific archetypes that we have, or they're actually symbols. And so that's what the assessment is. And so I had done it with her back in 2010. And I had improved on that assessment. So we had another one just yesterday. And so that's the assessment. And she wanted to know, how can she use it out in the world? And I thought, well, that's not a problem because that's what I did for 20 years.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to go through one aspect is called rapport and authentic rapport. And so what I found when I was out in sales is the rapport that they suggest, how to gain rapport, is, for example, first impression is the most important. Have the best attitude, lots of passion in your speaking, try to find empathy, things in common, and all that. Well, that's all physical. That's all outside physical world. And the other problem I had was you can take two inmates in prison and have the same thing. That doesn't mean they're going to trust each other.
Oh, you mean two inmates in prison can have rapport, but that's not equivalent to trusting.
That's what you, especially in sales, that's what you want to do, is you want your prospect to trust you. And this is what they do. This is the rapport they use. But then they would also say, listen to your customer and listen to prospect and listen to what their needs are. But then they have a whole section on how to overcome objections. So what do you do? Am I going to listen to the person or am I going to argue with them practically? So and that was always a problem. The main issue, though, if you go through lists of what you should do to gain rapport, there are always physical observations. And so that's always in my world is the effect of who you are, the synthetic side, the synthesis of what you learn. What I wanted to do was go to the authentic person, the authentic prospect. And so what I did was develop a system, a method to do just that. So one is human beings only have so many traits. And in fact, Gordon Allport, he came up with 4,000.
Oh, dang.
And so we have all these traits, but we have to be very selective in the ones that we value because the values are going to create our identity.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we only have so many traits to select from.
Right.
Okay? So what I said to myself is by knowing who I'm not, I know who you are.
Intriguing.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Okay. So I'm not a cop. Now, because I'm not, but why? What am I and how do I define what it takes to be a cop?
Right.
And so one is they have to put their life at risk. Well, I'm not going to do that. The other is that they're always after criminal, which means that I really don't like to be around that group of people, you might say.
Right, right.
The other is they really do cause problems for people, meaning the criminals, and they see victims all day. So just that alone, that group is telling me, in order to be in law enforcement, I have to have these characteristics, abilities, or traits.
Gotcha.
And I don't.
Right.
That means they do, you see?
I see. Okay.
Because we're all selecting from the same domain of possibility.
Right, right.
So what I do then is say, if you were an officer, I would say, isn't it scary to be out there every day and putting yourself at risk like that? I couldn't do that. How do you do that?
Gotcha.
And what happens is you're acknowledging their authentic identity. And that's something that people very seldom get to feel.
So you're
Sure.
calling out their authentic identity by acknowledging, oh my gosh, you're not saying it this way, but one of the traits you have is to deal with the criminal element all day. How do you do that? So you're basically acknowledging something that you see that they do or are?
Yes.
Gotcha.
They are, not do.
Thank you.
So these are the manifestations of their being, and that's what I want to focus on.
Gotcha.
Because the concept of being is an archetype that will cover all my other questions or all my other issues and will really be a guide to understanding who this person is.
So let me ask you something with authentic rapport. Authentic rapport doesn't mean you have to pretend to have the same traits as that person in order to get along with them.
Oh, exactly. What they teach you in sales is find something in common. So you walk in their office and you see golf clubs in the corner and you say, oh, I golf too, And so I start talking about the courses I go to. And then he looks at me and says, I hate golf. That's my brother's clubs. He left it from a party last night. Now what do you do?
Right.
So there's a lot of things that you could see that you may have rapport with, but you may not. And now you've got to be careful with that. It really is a little bit of guessing and a little bit of selection. And some people get luckier than others. So that was always the problem, it's always a guesswork. When I know what a person does for a living and they're happy with it, that's very important. They're content, at least content. Then I know that they have characteristics I do not have. See, in this country, you're always pushed to thinking you can do anything. And we've discussed this before. But it's not about can, it's about must you. Right. That's the difference. You feel like a must. And so if someone is happy being in law enforcement, what they're saying is that who I am being conforms with law enforcement, and law enforcement conforms with me.
Yeah, gotcha.
Makes sense?
Cool. Yes, that does make sense.
So if that's the case, then I am not in law enforcement, and there's a reason. There's a reason because there's characteristics that I don't have. At the same time, the officer would fantasize, I want to be a writer. But he'd have to think to himself, well, what does it take to be a writer? Well, you have to be hours alone.
Right.
You have to really like aloneness and constantly think, and come
Right.
up with ideas. And so maybe the officer is saying, well, no, I want to be in action. I want to be doing stuff, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so they're looking at me in that perspective. And by knowing who they're not, they
Mhm.
can't know who I am.
Ah, gotcha.
So it
Gotcha.
works both
Gotcha.
ways.
Yeah. Very cool. So, question for you, because of course, authentic systems has to do with archetypes, right? It has to do
Right.
with love, justice, wisdom, and power. So, when we're talking about authentic rapport, how would that maybe change or be impacted depending on which life theme you're talking with?
Sure. I'll give you a very good one. And what I learned all of this through sales. Sales
Mhm.
was a fantastic place to learn about motivation and who you're talking to, what their professions are, what they like and dislike. So I always have an example of, let's say, a Tesla. So
Yes.
the love person wants to buy the Tesla because of their caring of the world, the earth.
Mhm.
Okay. So what I would do is, if I was going to sell them a Tesla, then I would bring that point up that, you are saving the planet if you get a Tesla.
Right.
Right. And so I would have that as a baseline, like it's like a lexicon in itself. And
Right.
each person, each type, love, justice, wisdom, and power have their own. And so I would dip into that. Now, the justice person, he wants to offset carbon, something like that. He wants to bring balance, symmetry into the situation.
Mhm.
So that's why he might buy a Tesla, or she.
Mhm.
Then you have the wisdom people who are really in love with the mechanics of it, how it
Mhm.
works, the machinery of it, the technology. That's where my focus would be.
Mm.
And then, of course, power people, they want to be an example to show others
Mhm.
of the direction of the future. And so that's where I would focus. And believe it or not, I wouldn't change it. But there's something, when we're on this, I discovered something that was actually shocking to me. I assessed a car salesman who was a love theme, but it was focused on family.
Huh.
And what he sold were station wagons at the time,
Mhm.
SUVs, a family car.
Mhm.
His friend, Bob, I don't remember his name, but he sold sports cars, small, fast, muscle cars. So I can understand where my friend would push the type of car that he is associated with, as would the friend. But there's something else that happened. Someone would come on the lot and see my friend. We'll just call him John. That's fine.
Mhm.
So we'd come on a lot and see John and talk about the fast cars.
Mhm.
And he would comply, but for some reason there wasn't a connection. And the
Mm.
people would leave,
Ah,
but then come back. And when they came back, they talked to Bob and they bought a car.
interesting.
That is very interesting, because it's not only that you feel your own authentic identity, but others do too.
Okay, if you don't mind, unpack that for us a little bit. So,
Yeah.
why did the gentleman talk to the fast car salesman, leave, and then come back and buy a car?
The empathy was not there with my friend John. There was not a connection that, in a sense, goes beyond language.
Right.
Okay? And we'd all do it.
Mhm.
We walk into a room and we just glance around and we almost think who we're going to get along with and who we won't.
Right,
And
right.
so that's all I could think of, is that it really extends beyond language, and it's a type of communication that is abstract. And actually, according to phenomenology, which I'm
Mhm.
not going to get into now, the idea is that what's really happening is we're in contact with the essence of someone, the force,
Gotcha.
the psychic energy
Mhm,
of
mhm.
someone. And everyone generates energy in some way. And so what I've discovered so far, that I can just surmise this, is that it is this
Mhm.
energy, this essential energy of two people coming together and either finding synchronicity or not, either find, some kind of automatic rapport, you might say.
Mhm.
And so my friend John is a family person, and the people who came there were looking for something so very different. And so also because he was a family-oriented person, he comes across that way when speaking.
Ah, gotcha.
And he might even mention, oh, this is a great car. How many children do you have? Oh, I don't have any. Oh, okay. Well, let's go over here to another family car. And he might not mention family, but he'll talk about the attributes of the car. And he would say, no, I want something fast. Well, so he would take him over there to where the fast cars are. But then the language wouldn't change that much.
Right. Gotcha.
The feeling generated by the language wouldn't change that.
Right.
This is still a family guy selling a sports car.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just to look at it, you would think, what does that mean? It doesn't make any sense, right? But that's what I mean, is that this experience really changed my view on how people read each other.
Yeah.
And I've read a great deal of the philosopher Husserl, who wrote a great deal on phenomenology. And from his perspective, it is the essence we're looking into when we're looking for compatibility.
Excellent. Okay. This is fascinating. I think we should take a quick break. But then when we come back, let's talk some more about how people read each other and compatibility. I think that's juicy.
After a quick break, John and Kim will be back with more of Authentic Living, podcast for a better life.
Hi, I'm Kim Wells Ely, and with my company, Kiwi Publishing, KWE Publishing, I help take people from idea to published book. But you know about me, I want to share with you today is about an amazing nonprofit called Podium RVA. It's fantastic. They work with public schools, youth development networks, and community centers across the greater Richmond area to bring writing, communication, and leadership workshops to RVA youth. Podium mentors meet weekly all year long with youth in workshops, preparing them for participation in podium publications, such as their annual literary journal and quarterly zines, and showcases to share their creative voices with the larger communities. It's a super fun, amazing group, and I love what they're doing. So check out podiumrva.org and support them today. They're amazing.
Welcome back to the Authentic Relationships Podcast. Here's John Boris and Kim Ely.
Hi, we are back with Authentic Living, podcast for a better life. And we've been having a really interesting discussion. And John, I want to pick back up on how people read each other and compatibility. And I want to start with a question.
Okay.
So again, real life, talking to a friend of mine the other day, her son is in high school, and she said, I'm starting to take him to colleges to check out where he would like to attend. And she said, but I want to make sure I attend each college more than one time. And I was like, why? That seems like a big waste of gas and time. And she said, well, what happened to me when I went to college is I had a fantastic connection with the tour guide from that college. Absolutely just hit it off with this person, decided that's where I wanted to go to college, and hated the college experience. And she said, I don't want that to happen to my son. So I'm curious to know, what does that tell us about my friend and her rapport, and whether it was misleading and sold her the wrong product, right? Because a tour guide is essentially a salesperson for a college, right?
Right. Okay. My first guess would be that your friend is a justice person. And
she is a justice person.
And the reason for that is because they're always in a state of duality. They're always looking for symmetry. They're always looking for balance. And also decisions can often be quite a struggle because they are always seeing both sides. And so that's why college, to go back twice, that's the indication of a justice person. A love person would just be either I love this college or I don't.
Right.
A wisdom person may make a lot of phone calls and not physically go there as often, and maybe not at all, and decide which ones they like and just go to the one that they think is best. And a power person would do the same thing, choose a top university and apply for one university, and that's the end of it. So then the other issue is her. So she's got the tour guide and the college. Well, the truth is, yes, it's a package that's being presented. It's
Right.
a whole package, but there's two aspects to the package. So what she did is found balance between the tour guide and the college. That college must reflect the tour guide. See? So that's what the justice people do. They're always engaged in a pronged approach to a lot of decisions.
Gotcha. Okay. So that totally suits her temperament and or her life theme. She is a justice person. I would say, because as we've talked about before, justice people are a combination of love and wisdom. I would say she favors more, maybe her love side is a little heavier than her wisdom side. Is that accurate? Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
But they're always contributing to the decision. And so that's what makes it sometimes very difficult.
Gotcha. Excellent.
But we're on this path of reading other people. And what we have is authentic rapport. And so the way that method worked for me for 20 years is by knowing who I'm not, I know who you are. So if I am not in law enforcement, I have to say to myself, what personality or characteristics or internal drives would someone in law enforcement have? Because I'm not one. So there's something missing in me that is present in them, or they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. So you think one is they're putting their life at risk every day. They're engaged with criminals every day. They surround themselves with crimes and victims every day. And they cause a lot of problems for the perpetrators, hopefully. And they can be often very much disliked by certain segments of the population. And so those are issues that I don't resonate with at all. And so, no, I don't want to be at risk. I don't want to be around criminals. I don't like the idea of being disliked. That's a very big issue for a lot of people when it comes to careers and having positions of authority. Can I be disliked? More like, can I survive it? So by knowing who I'm not, I know who that person is in the sense of an archetype, like the concept of risk, the concept of crime. So that being the case, then I would approach that person knowing that these are part of that person's characteristics. Gotcha. And then what I would do is talk to that. I'd say, how do you do it every day? That risk. I mean, don't you ever worry about people shooting at you and things like that? And they'll give me an answer, but they'll also be a very prideful answer. Oh, yes, but we've been trained to do this and that. And I'm acknowledging they're authentic. And we're dealing with criminals every day. How do you do that? Well, it's been training and I do this, that, and the other. But I mean, it doesn't matter. It could be a talk show host. It doesn't matter. If it's not something you would care to do, there's a reason for that. And the reason is they have traits and characteristics you don't. But at the same time, you have characteristics and traits they don't. You always keep that in mind. So by knowing who I'm not, I can know who they are. And then what I do is I work on that, test it, and ask questions. Then they want to have rapport with me.
So I have a question for you. This is a chicken or the egg type question. So what comes first? Let's use a different profession this time. We were talking about cops before. We've talked before about master carpenters, right?
Yeah.
Master carpenters tend to have certain traits. What comes first, since you know about authentic systems and you are able to read people? Do you generally find out what profession they're in and then figure, you know what, based on the typical master carpenter, I think this person is this life theme? Or do you identify the life theme and then learn more about their profession to kind of back it up? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, that's fine. In the very beginning, I didn't use life themes.
Okay.
It took me over about 23 years before I came to that result. And so I would say someone, a metal shop worker, and I would look at those people and see the patterns of the next metal shop worker and the next metal shop worker. And that's how I started. And then I found that there is an overall theme. And then much later, I came up with the idea of the love, justice, wisdom, and power. So what I would do is I would just say, okay, I think, for example, you, when I first started, say you're either a love or a justice person. Now let's find out. So I would talk to you and I'd listen to the words you used, and the love was confirmed.
So wait a second. So did you already know I was an editor and then you thought, is she a love or justice person? Or I guess you had to have, because you knew I was an editor when we met.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha. I was just curious, but was it based on talking with me that you thought, oh, she's either love or justice? Or was it, most of the editors I work with are either love or justice?
No, that's a good point. Because I hadn't really been in contact with a lot of editors, but I did know that you're having to work with two things: facts, which is the wisdom side, but the other side is the humanistic aspect. You have to know what the human wants, what's the desire, what's going to be satisfying that person, and you have to learn the fact side so you can present that. So I understand that, but here's the difference. The difference is, do you love for the sake of love, or do you engage in justice for the sake of love?
Okay.
In order to express love, in order to express it.
Okay. So what questions might you ask to find that out?
Oh, for you, you're very unusual. So, you're always fun. You're always happy. You're always up. And so you're always highly expressive. And so there was no choice. There was love all around. Oh, yeah.
It's like, I got you pegged.
Yeah.
You're a love theme. Okay.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, I want to say that usually people can tell you, even when you first meet them, they'll tell you in 5 minutes their life thing. They really will. You can really pick it up rapidly. Once you learn your own, this all begins with learning your own.
There we go. You have to know your own. And that goes back to what you were saying before. You have to know who you are and who you are not to be able to go, oh, wait a minute. You and I, again, talking about authentic rapport, we've talked about before, sometimes you walk into a group of strangers and you meet someone and you just hit it off like gangbusters. Boom. I feel like I've known you my whole life.
That's right.
And generally those people are your same life theme.
They have aspects that are
aspects. Okay.
Aspects. So I have some justice people that are very good friends. They're high wisdom, but they do contribute. The love comes in, which is something that we can contribute to each other, because that's the difference. The difference and the similarity are both there.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's a rapport because the wisdom parts of you connect.
There's something I can give that person give me. And I've been around wisdom people, theoretical, and they're immediately in competition.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Another way to look at this is think of the group that you associate with, your friends, the people you see all the time. Then decide which life theme these people are. And notice that if there is another love there, that there's a different kind, a different type.
Gotcha.
Remember, the love theme is dominant, but the authentic motivator can be very different.
Okay. Gotcha.
So there's difference and similarities. And what you'll find is, in the end, you're the only one like that in that group. You're the only one.
Interesting.
So you have an authentic motivator that is you, and you associate with other people, and they're drawn to you for the love theme. And also, if there is another love theme there, it's going to be of a different authentic motivator, which will not cause the competition.
Gotcha. Fascinating. I find this fascinating. Oh my gosh. Amazing. So what might be another thing that we should know about authentic rapport? What can we learn about ourselves and then apply for when we are meeting new people or in a new situation?
Another approach is, who would say that?
Okay.
So let's say there's a woman that steps onto a car lot, and he introduces himself and what kind of car are you looking for? And she says, well, I'm looking for something really small and inexpensive and just anything just to get around. So who would say that?
Somebody practical, somebody who maybe was thinking of somebody else financially, like, oh, we don't need this to be a big expense because something else is more important.
Right. So she can actually have money, but be pragmatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you start to read the person right in the moment. Because who would say that? Who would say that? A gentleman said, there's no sense going into teaching. There's no money in it. So I would say, now, who would say that? So discredit, and it's all money and I bet that person's a power person.
Right.
And then I would, let's check that out. And it'd come out right. I did this for over 20 years and living at it. And this does actually work. And you reading people is very, very simple when you deal with archetypes. Don't get down to the weeds, down to something specific. I don't care. For example, I taught one salesman to read people. And so he cares about, do you want a car or a truck?
Right.
And you can figure that out. You can read that.
Right.
But you're not going to be reading what color they want. You see what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And you may not see that it's an automatic or a stick or whatever it might be. And you're not going to do that, but you don't need to. That's one thing I liked about this system is I learned enough about my prospects to sell them something.
Gotcha.
I didn't want to go any deeper than that. That's all I needed, right?
Right.
So this is how this works. But you're going to know, I know that person wants to buy. I know that person will buy. And I know I've got what he wants.
Right.
But even then, what would happen is I'm at the shop and the manager would come out and say, what are you doing? And say, well, I was talking to this guy about food or whatever it is. No, we got work to do. So that would be a loss for me. I don't have, I have 60% of prospects that I sold. Yeah. But the other 40% was tangled into other issues.
Gotcha.
But who would say that? And by knowing who I'm not, I know who they are. And those two, in fact, I remember I taught that to people in real estate, and they had 4 couples, and it was a wedding reception. 4 couples followed them the entire day because they wanted rapport with them. That's the difference. So it's one thing. What this does is it's not that I'm trying to get rapport with them. What I'm doing is trying to get them to want rapport with me.
That's an important distinction.
And it worked, but it only worked if I tapped into their authentic. So you could say, "Oh, we do the same thing. That's fine." Or you can go down to a car lot and say, "Gee, you got clothes on. So do I." Hey.
There's so much in common.
Oh yeah. And
that's funny.
Yeah, they're almost can be like that. Anyway, so that really works. But then the other person feels acknowledged on a deeper level.
Right.
Professionals use that technique, and they've come to me and says, "I couldn't believe how it worked." And he said, "All I did is he was in movies and had to do with film projectors and repair and things like that. And he always had a problem with this one guy." And so he used this. He said, it's amazing what you have to go through, the technology you have to learn. It's really fascinating. And so he said he was first stiff when he talked to the other guy was stiff. As soon as he said that, he actually relaxed and leaned against the wall. The other guy. And so that's when he started really expressing who he was.
Gotcha.
And he opened up immediately and wanted a rapport with my guy.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, this has been another fascinating episode, and there's always so much more to talk about, but we need to wind it down. But if somebody is like, holy cow, John, I need to know my life theme so I can have authentic rapport with others, how do they reach out to you?
Well, the very best way is john@authentic-systems.com. If you want to go to the site, it's authentic-systems.com. But it's still being built, but I will answer an email.
Excellent. And I continually find this so fascinating, and thank you so much. And I always learn a ton, and I truly do use authentic systems in my business because I'm always having rapport with potential clients, and it really does come in handy. So I am completely living proof that it works, and it's awesome. So thank you so much, John.
Sure.
And everybody, thank you for listening, and please join us next time.
Thank you.
This concludes another episode of Authentic Living, podcast for a better life. Thanks for spending time with us. Hope you join us again soon.